The fairground is packed by mid-morning, tents lined up along the gravel lot, the smell of fried dough drifting over rows of trucks and trailers. Somewhere, a loudspeaker announces the next livestock judging. None of that matters to the crowd gathered near the vegetable tables, where 4 men in feed store caps are laughing hard enough to draw stares. On the table in front of them sits a small, scratched piece of plastic, tubes, 2 bottles, a cloudy little valve nobody would look at twice at a yard sale. The famous $15 miracle, one of them says, loud enough for the row behind him to hear. Another leans in with his phone out, filming for a laugh he plans to send to half the county by lunch. People are paying to look at that thing, he says. Paying. The crowd laughs with him. Emma doesn't. She stands behind her table with her arms loose at her sides, waiting for the noise to die down on its own. When it does, she reaches under the table and pulls back a tarp, uncovering 3 wooden crates stacked with carrots, potatoes, onions, beets, and radishes, every one of them clean, uniform, unmarked by scab or crack. The laughing stops first. The whispering starts next. A university researcher crouches beside the crates and runs a moisture probe into a carrot without asking permission. He checks the reading twice. A second researcher joins him, then a third. Nobody at this table has seen root vegetables this consistent come out of a season that left half the county's crops stunted and split from drought stress. An older man near the back of the crowd goes quiet. He steps forward slowly, past the researchers, until he's close enough to see the little plastic model clearly. He doesn't laugh. He stares at it the way a person stares at something they thought they'd never see again. I've seen one of these before, he says. Nobody answers him. 40 years ago, he says. Almost this exact one. The fairground noise keeps going around them, but at this table, everything has gone still. 22 months earlier, none of this existed. Not the crowd, not the researchers, not the model. Just a young woman standing alone on a struggling piece of land, trying to figure out how to keep it. Emma Brooks is 27. The spring her father's health finally forces him off the tractor for good. He hands her the farm the way a man hands over something he's ashamed of, not because it's failing outright, but because it's barely hanging on, and he knows it. The land grows root vegetables, has for 3 generations, carrots and potatoes and beets sold at the same 3 markets her grandfather sold to. The irrigation bill climbs every year. The groundwater table drops a little more every season. Equipment breaks in ways that used to be simple, fixes and now cost money she doesn't have. Her father still sits on the porch most evenings, calling out advice he used to act on himself, and every piece of it comes wrapped in an apology he never quite finishes. Her brother works construction 2 towns over and tells her plainly, more than once, that selling the land, while it's still worth something, makes more sense than fighting for it. Emma doesn't argue with him. She just doesn't sell. She's up before sunrise checking leaves for stress, out in the dirt with her hands instead of gloves, patching irrigation, lying with tape that won't hold past July. She keeps a notebook of weather and soil conditions the way other people keep a diary, and if she talks to the rows while she works, it's not because she's strange. It's because farming alone is quiet in a way that gets to a person eventually. Her neighbors are friendly enough at the feed store, but the running assumption around here is that real solutions cost real money. The local supplier pushes irrigation upgrades every chance he gets. Bigger pumps, wider lines, systems priced for farms twice her size. Bigger investment, bigger fix. That's the whole philosophy. Emma starts to wonder if that philosophy is the reason she's drowning. The discovery happens on a Tuesday at a clearance sale inside a warehouse that used to supply science kits to elementary schools before the district cut the budget. Emma is there for parts, mostly tubing and fittings she can repurpose cheap. Tucked on a bottom shelf between broken microscopes is a rainwater cycle demonstration model built for a classroom. Plastic tubing, 2 small bottles, a hand-turned valve meant to show kids how water moves through soil layers. The price tag reads $15, and it's been marked down twice already because nobody wants it. Emma buys it out of curiosity more than anything else. At the kitchen table that night, she runs water through it slowly, watching how small adjustments to the valve change everything downstream, how a narrower channel doesn't just slow the water, it changes where it settles and how long it stays. Somewhere in that repetition, a thought lands that she can't quite shake. Rain isn't the problem. Speed is. She starts small, recreating the same principle outside with recycled bottles, shallow trenches, mulch, clay, wood chips, gravity doing the work instead of a pump. Nothing dramatic happens at first. Some setups fail outright. Others show barely measurable improvement, easy to dismiss as noise. But one corner of the carrot field starts holding moisture noticeably, longer than the rows around it. Emma writes it down without much excitement. Another line in a notebook already full of failed experiments. She doesn't know yet that she's stumbled onto something the rest of the farm forgot how to do a long time ago. Word travels fast in a place this small, and it isn't kind at first. Kids start building their own miniature rain toys out of soda bottles just to mock her, and it becomes a joke at the feed store before it becomes anything else. The toy farmer, somebody starts calling her, and it sticks. The irrigation supplier hears about it and doesn't waste the opportunity, telling anyone who'll listen that homemade systems are a waste of a season. Nobody can afford to lose. At the next community meeting, Emma feels the shift in the room the moment she walks in. Then a storm rolls through hard enough to flatten half the county's beds, and Emma's experimental corner comes through mostly intact. People call it luck. Nobody calls it anything else. Not yet. A regional consultant shows up not long after, polished, persistent, offering to help in a way that mostly means talking her out of what she's doing. He pushes equipment upgrades with a kind of urgency that doesn't match a casual sales pitch. When she declines, his interest doesn't fade the way a disinterested salesman's would. Instead, it sharpens. Rumors start moving through the growers' group that Emma is spreading dangerous misinformation, telling people to abandon proven irrigation for backyard experiments. The ridicule that used to feel harmless starts costing her something real. Buyers hesitate. Neighbors stop asking questions and start avoiding her table. There's a night late, standing in the shed with a little plastic model in her hand, when Emma seriously considers throwing it in the trash and pretending none of this ever started. She doesn't, but it's close. The turn comes from someone with no reason to flatter her. Local agricultural extension officer stops by after hearing about the moisture logs Emma's been keeping, expecting, by his own admission later, to find nothing worth his time. Instead, he finds soil that's losing dramatically, less water after rainfall than anything else in the region, not because of irrigation volume, but because of how well it's absorbing what falls naturally. He runs the numbers twice before he says anything out loud. It's the first outside voice to say what Emma has quietly suspected for months. This isn't luck. A farming magazine reaches out shortly after, interested enough to send someone out for a visit. Before that visit can happen, the regional forecast turns grim. Meteorologists are calling for the driest late season the area has seen in over a decade. Every bit of hope Emma's built now has to survive a drought. If you've ever bet everything on one season and watched the sky refuse to cooperate, you already know what that waiting feels like. Now's a good moment to hit subscribe, because the next stretch of this story gets a lot harder before it gets better. The rain stops and doesn't come back. Reservoir levels drop fast enough that the county announces restrictions within weeks. Neighboring farms start pulling harder on groundwater, running pumps around the clock, trying to outlast a sky that isn't cooperating. Emma doesn't. Her whole method depends on holding on to what little rain does fall, not fighting for what's left underground, and to people watching from the outside, that looks like stubbornness dressed up as principle. The consultant sees his opening and takes it, organizing demonstrations for emergency irrigation packages, timing them to land right when Emma's fields are at their most vulnerable. Her success would undercut everything he's selling. Her failure proves him right in front of everyone. Then someone gets into her shed overnight. Nothing valuable is missing, no tools, no equipment. Only her notebooks are gone. Months of moisture logs and field notes vanished. The plastic model is left behind on the floor, knocked over, cracked slightly along one seam. Emma can't prove it was anything more than a random break-in. She also can't shake the feeling that it wasn't. 3 weeks stand between her and the harvest. Inspections the magazine is coming to see. No rain in the forecast. No margin left for error. With her notes gone, Emma spends her nights trying to rebuild them from memory, and it's during one of those late sessions, digging through boxes in the attic for anything that might jog her recall, that she finds something she wasn't looking for. Her grandfather's old rainfall journals, hand-drawn drainage sketches, weather notes going back decades, field diagrams marked with symbols she doesn't immediately understand. He wasn't tracking how much rain fell. He was tracking where it stayed. The realization lands slowly, then all at once. The plastic classroom model didn't teach Emma anything new. It just handed her back a way of seeing water that this land already knew, one her own family had once practiced, and quietly let go of as bigger. Irrigation systems took over. Researchers who visit later cross-reference her grandfather's hand-drawn maps against modern satellite imagery, and the same naturally wetter pockets of land are still there, unchanged, waiting for someone to notice them again. It raises more questions than it answers. Why did an entire generation of farmers walk away from methods that worked? Who benefited when that knowledge got quietly buried under bigger equipment and bigger loans? Back at the county fair, standing in front of her crates, the laughter from earlier sounds different now, smaller somehow. The way a joke sounds once everyone realizes it was never funny. Researchers move between the crates taking readings. Farmers who were laughing 20 minutes ago have gone quiet, watching. The older man steps forward again, and this time he explains himself. Decades ago, he says, he attended a soil conservation workshop that used demonstration, models almost identical to the one on Emma's table. The techniques worked. Then commercial irrigation expanded, promised faster and easier results, and an entire method of reading the land simply faded out of use. It wasn't lost knowledge. It was knowledge nobody had a reason to sell. Lab results confirm what the field readings already suggested. Emma's vegetables show remarkably even moisture levels, less cracking, better storage life, and stronger yields, all while using a fraction of the irrigation her neighbors relied on. The photographs spread fast once they hit the internet, and the story that travels with them is simple. A $15 toy saved a farm. It's a good headline, and it isn't quite true. The researchers are careful to say so publicly. The model itself didn't produce any of this. It changed how one exhausted, stubborn farmer chose to look at water, and that shift in attention is what actually did the work. The real breakthrough was never the plastic. It was Emma's willingness to keep testing something everyone told her wasn't worth testing. The offers start almost immediately. Licensing deals, speaking invitations, consulting contracts with her name attached. One agricultural company proposes an exclusive branded version of the concept, packaged, priced, and sold back to the same kind of farmers who couldn't afford it the first time around. Emma sits with the offer longer than anyone expects her to. Then she turns it down. She keeps the principles open instead, free for any small grower willing to try them, choosing what the land can teach, for the price of attention over what it could earn for the price of a license. The farm's debts don't disappear overnight, but they start shrinking, season by season, as the harvests hold steady. Neighbors who once laughed start showing up quietly to ask questions, and Emma answers every one of them without bringing up who used to mock her. The extension office begins hosting workshops built around her methods, and young farmers start arriving before they've bought a single piece of new equipment, wanting to learn how to watch the land before they spend anything on it. The consultant's influence fades on its own terms, not through confrontation, just through results that keep speaking louder than his sales pitch ever could. Emma's farm becomes known for something quieter than a viral harvest. It becomes known for paying attention. Early one morning, Emma wipes down the same scratched plastic model that started all of it, the cracked seam still visible along one side, the tape still holding it together. She doesn't put it behind glass. She sets it on a shelf in the workshop, in reach, where anyone can pick it up. Kids visiting the farm gather around it sometimes, turning the little valve back and forth the way she once did at her kitchen table. One of them asks how something so small changed so much. Emma just smiles and doesn't over-explain it. Outside, rain begins falling gently over fields that no longer flinch at a dry forecast, and the image holds there for a moment, quiet, unremarkable, exactly the way the whole story began.